Hi, I'm Joanna Hogan. Welcome to the Inspire Generosity podcast. In this season, you're going to hear from thought leaders and board members and philanthropists sharing what fundraising looks and feels like from their perspective. It starts by stripping misinformation, presenting new information, and rewriting the rules of fundraising. My biggest breakthrough, it came from when I would ask questions to those who were on the other side of the table. Dana Wichterman is a generosity mentor, and I just love that title. She's also an impact investor and an international development leader. Recently, she and her husband, Bill, who live below their means so that they can give more, co-authored a book called Stewards, Not Owners. I really enjoyed my conversation with Dana, and I know you will too. I'm Joanna Hogan, and this is the Inspire Generosity podcast.
I would say getting clear on where you would find the most joy and satisfaction if you knew you could move the needle a bit in one area or another. And that's where I think you want to lean into. Yeah.
You know when it's somebody who genuinely wants to find out what are you trying to accomplish with your money that's meaningful to you, and they find that alignment and they invite you to make a gift. That is so different.
Oh yeah, it's very different.
This podcast is sponsored by the Dreams Retreat. Now, this is not ordinary training. Ordinary training is tactical and patchwork at best. To inspire generosity, you need training that is simple, that's sequential, and that's what this is. It's exactly what I wish I would have had when I first got my start. If you'd like to learn more, go to inspire-generosity.com. Dana, it is so nice to see you again. Thanks for joining me on this podcast. I've been wanting to talk to you about your experience as well, you have a lot of different roles. You've sat on the table of needing to invite people to support a nonprofit, as well as been asked to give. So I want to ask you about your giving experiences. So what makes you want to give? I mean, just really wants you to give before anyone even asks you. Like, what really inspires you?
Well, Joanna, thank you so much for having me on this program. So what really inspires me to give is because I feel that all our resources should be utilized for making the world a better place. Like simply like that old adage of if you've gone to a campsite, make sure you leave it better than you found it. Yeah. And I really feel that that's an adage for life. Teaching my kids that. I want to live that way. I want to be a better neighbor, a better friend, a better daughter, wife, etc. And so how can I do that with all my resources? And one of the resources that we've been blessed with is money. We didn't know that we were going to be blessed with that. We weren't early on, but over time with good money management, we've been able to be good savers and get out of debt. And so we've always been givers, though. And I would encourage people to give, even if it's just a small amount. Don't worry about how much you give. I think giving is a portal into using your own agency to have an impact in the world.
I agree.
And so no matter how large or how small, you making that little step of giving and giving to areas that you feel are going to have a good impact in the world and leave the world a little bit better place than you found it is, I think, really what inspires me and inspires a lot of people.
Oftentimes, it requires someone, though, to actually request or invite you to give. Sometimes I think people want to give, but they're not really sure how, or they don't know what it would give to. And I'm wondering, have you then waited until someone asked you, or has there been a time where you were so inspired that you gave before anyone even asked?
Oh, yeah. So I have always known where my calling is in terms of various areas that I'm supposed to have some kind of impact on, which also gets you clarity on what areas you don't need to have impact on, even though you care about them. Like I care about maybe say mental wellness or whatever, but that's not the area that I feel called in, that I can make the necessarily best impact on. So I encourage others in their journey towards maybe impacting that. But I would say getting clear on where you would find the most joy and satisfaction if you knew you could move the needle a bit in one area or another, whether it's poverty alleviation, whether it's community building in your neighborhood, whatever that is. What kind of makes your heart leap when you know that something could look better if you were involved?
So what is it for you?
And that's where I think you want to lean into.
Yeah. What is it? What makes your heart leap? I mean, there's so many, but I bet there's a few that are just...
So many, yeah. I think justice for the oppressed, so anti-human trafficking efforts, even though it's a really hard and dark place to walk into, there are so many good organizations doing really good work in that area. And so I think giving to like International Justice Mission and others that are doing work in that area has really made my heart leap. And now also I've gotten involved, my kids have gotten involved. So when they were young, they would do car wash fundraisers for IJM. They do, races for it. We'd have birthday parties where we'd say, don't bring a gift, bring a check for, and then we would pick a nonprofit. Now, of course, my daughters would be like, well, wait a minute, why can't, and so I'd say, okay, well, we're going to get some gifts too, but how about we also provide an opportunity to bless another ministry? So I think so poverty alleviation is the other area I really care about, both at home and abroad, and doing that through job creation, because I think when people have a job, they then can provide for their own needs. So to me, it's a solution that solves a lot of other problems.
So can we just talk about one of these examples? So poverty. Imagine that there is a nonprofit organization. I'm sure there's probably several that you're involved with that address that. But can you tell me a story or a time when you were so inspired that you just made the gift without anyone even asking you? Or have you had to wait? Have you had to wait because it wasn't clear how? Or is there a specific memory that might come up?
Yeah, I don't have a specific memory, but I have always been on the outlook for good ministries that are addressing that. And my heart was always drawn to the region of Africa. So when I hear about organizations, nonprofits in Africa that are doing job creation or helping people launch their own businesses, so kind of what we call savings group, microfinance, that got me very interested. And then I would go on the hunt for what were good, effective organizations that were doing it with excellence. So I do think that you need to do a little bit of research. If somebody isn't reaching out to you and telling them about their organization, and then you do need to see what kind of impact they're having, do they have good governance, etc. But I do think you need to be an educated giver, but also an inspired giver.
And the reason I'm asking this kind of question is that our audience is primarily fundraising professionals and nonprofit leaders who are on the side of asking. And I like to say they're on the side of inviting, really, not asking. But what I'm wondering is, in order to help them be more effective and to help them inspire you, I'm wondering, what is the difference in the feeling? I'm sure there have been times where you felt like you've been targeted. That's a different feeling than being inspired to give. Just if you could help us understand from your perspective, what does that feel like? How is it different?
Oh, yeah, it's very different. So I talk about guilt gifts or nuisance gifts, and then the heart gifts, the gifts you want to give, right? So some you give out of duty because the person's really persistent. The Girl Scout cookie person is in your neighborhood, and you got to give it's a relational gift. It's not because you want more Girl Scout cookies necessarily, but you want to have that neighbor relationship. So you're going to give because your friend gives as well, but you're not going to give that much, and you're probably not going to be a repeat giver. And those, so what I would say for putting on my fundraising hat is you want to, first of all, believe in your product and service that you're giving out. So, or that you're asking for funding for. So you really want to be inspired yourself by why this is important to give to. So you want to know your organization. You want to know why people in the organization are working for it so hard, what the joys are, what some of the challenges are, so that you can speak to those. And then I think you need to do homework on the person that you're calling or emailing. Look and see, how often have they given in the past? Did they miss a year? Did they give large gifts? Did they start falling off? You want to know kind of what their participation has been with the organization in the past, and maybe even look at their LinkedIn or their Facebook to see what are their passions and what are their things that are that they care a lot about, so that you come prepared to the conversation, so you can ask the right questions. Because I think you need to start out with the right questions of who are they, what gets their their heart beating faster, and where would they be, what would they be excited about?
So if they do that or they don't do that, what does it feel like? I mean, you know what they should do, all these things that you just said. Well, first of all, do most of people do their homework when you're being approached and invited to make a gift? Do you feel like most of the time people are doing that pre-work? I'm trying to get your perspective as someone who's been asked. What's that feel like when they've done their work versus not done the work?
Yeah, I would say most have not. Now, they may know my giving history and say, you've been a faithful supporter in the past. I just wanted to talk to you about our future. And those are fine. What I think also, if you can link them to another person and friend that they have, so you say, I know that you've been a faithful giver and you are friends with some other faithful donors, XYZ, and you name those people. Particularly women are much more relational givers. They like to give in community. And so if you connect them with some of the friends that they may know, again, that's hard to sometimes know, but if you can, that's a wonderful thing. You want to know what events they've been to. Have they come to some of your fundraisers? And then if you have, if they haven't come to your fundraisers or to your events, maybe your mission trips or your vision trips, you want to be prepared to invite them to learn more about the ministry if they're not as familiar.
Dana, I can tell you are a generosity mentor, right? I can tell because you've been helping people be more effective. But for right now, I want you to think about yourself as being asked. And I think, if I remember correctly, one time when we talked, you mentioned that you give sometimes a little less than you might because you just don't want them calling you and saying, hey, I'm in town. I mean, tell us about that, because I'm sure I want people to understand what it really feels like for you. I mean, you're a generous person, but man, when you're really targeted, and that, just speak to that part, if you would.
Yeah. Well, I don't necessarily feel targeted because I understand that that's their role. They need that. That's what they're supposed to do. And I even encourage people, don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to call. However, I remember that I knew that when you hit the $10,000 giving, you get the phone call from the main development director. Hey, I'm in town. I want to meet with you in person. And if I didn't have time to meet with people in person and I felt guilty about saying, no, I would just give like a little bit less than $10,000 so that it wouldn't ping on their radar. Obviously, I don't think many people think that way, but I kind of got to the point where I knew that certain things were going to trigger a phone call, etc. I do get a lot of phone calls where people say, thank you for giving in the past, and would you consider in the future? I'd love to speak with you if you'd like, and they leave their phone number. I think you can do that, but I think you might also want to follow up at least one more time if you don't want to pester people, and you also want to be sensitive to that person, what they feel would make them would be an invitation. For me, a Zoom discussion is perfectly fine, but for other people, they want a coffee. Maybe they even want to meet with the CEO. I've been invited, hey, our international CEO is in town and he'd love to meet you for breakfast. I was like, that's awesome. So I made the trek downtown to meet this person. So if you have an influencer or someone like that could meet with the person and you can offer that, that's another thing to do, because women especially, love to be relational. And then I think both men and women want to see what's your track record? What kind of impact are you trying to do, and what can you already prove that you've done?
And what I want our listeners to get a sense for is, what is it like to be you? What is it like to be someone who has a lot of resources and gets hit up for money all the time? I mean, I know that you're very gracious because you do coach people, and because you're so experienced, you feel sorry for them sometimes, I think, and you know more than the average giving person, generous person does about how to do this work. But I'm just wondering, when someone has approached you, maybe it's been really amazing. Maybe it's not even just the approach. I want to know, what's the smallest thing a fundraiser may have ever done that made you feel like really known? Because we're talking about how to inspire generosity, not just fundraise. So I want to see an example of what has someone done. Just maybe it's a small thing that really made you feel known and it felt more genuine.
Well, for me, when people knew that I had been involved professionally with foreign aid, so they knew I had a heart for poverty alleviation, and that I had a track record in that area, I felt very known. So that was something I really appreciated. And if they also would ask for not only my treasure, my money, but some of my talent. So if people have certain things that they could advise you on, people love to be needed. I love to be needed.
Okay.
And so especially needed in the area of your expertise. You feel like you're contributing, and there's a huge satisfaction there. So asking for their wisdom,
So
I think is a really great way to make someone feel involved and invested in what you're doing. And the other thing is, if you're a newer organization, and you can talk to one thing I enjoy doing is helping launch new people into like a new nonprofit, or they've got a new country they're going into. So kind of the pioneer side of things. If someone can kind of catch me on that, if we're starting a new program, it's very risky, but if we do make it work and we have a proof of concept, then it will really impact and scale our impact. I'm a sucker for that.
Well, I think I also believe I don't know. When you say you're a sucker for that, I know it tugs on your heartstrings. But I think you are so sharp in that you can smell when somebody's just after your money. Like you can feel it. And then when it's somebody who genuinely wants to find out, what are you trying to accomplish with your money that's meaningful to you? And they find that alignment and they invite you to make a gift. That is so different. But somebody is just, it's just about them hitting their goal or getting what they need. It's really not about giving you a meaningful giving experience. Can you tell me a story or a time maybe to show the contrast of what it feels like?
Yeah. So when someone approaches me but knows I care about poverty alleviation, and even though if they are in that space, they also say, "Oh, are you involved?" And they know they name some of the other organizations. So they try to open up the horizons for me and not say we're like if you're saying we are the only person or nonprofit in this space that can make an impact and you need to give to us. But if you honor that person that you're asking may already be involved in some other nonprofits, you can celebrate that, encourage them, and then just tell them how your nonprofit may do things a little differently, how you might stand out. But you don't want to discourage them. You don't want to be like rating them from some other nonprofit. You want to maybe be having them think about broadening their impact through your strategy and how that might be differentiated. So I've had that where they've said, "Oh, I'm so glad you're involved in, with 2 or 3 other of the key poverty alleviation groups, and what's your experience been with them," and genuinely interested and praising the other organization for how well they've done. So not being threatened by the competition. And what I try to do when I'm doing fundraising is prepare my mindset so that I don't have to feel like I need to get this money. It's more I want to invite people to see their own agency and their own future in being a patron in what you're doing. So you're inviting them in to be like the old school patron of how did the arts get funded in the Middle Ages, How did Beethoven and all them become who they are? Because they had patrons. There was people behind them believed that their work and their impact needed to be in society, that the world was going to be better because of them. And so if you can show the person, like when I can be shown that I'm a essential part of what you're doing. I'm not just a walking paycheck. I'm an essential part of what you're doing. Then I can feel really good about partnering with you.
And that's why I'm so grateful you're on this podcast with me, because when I think about the times when I've learned best, there's all kinds of training available, workshops and webinars and on the how-to. But when they can actually hear from someone who's experienced it. It's different. It's like when they can put themselves in your shoes. So as you think about that, as you think about an example maybe of somebody, have you had a situation? Can you describe a time when someone has come to see you? Maybe they came to see you and Bill together, or maybe they came to see you and it was maybe awkward and uncomfortable. I mean, what did that? Can you just maybe tell me a little story?
Yeah. Well, it depends on if it's coming from a friend's reference, right? Like a friend saying, I'd love you to meet so and so because I think you'd really enjoy hearing what we're doing. And we pretty much try to honor those. And we actually may give to those because it's a relational gift. We have two reasons why we would give. One is because we believe God has put us in that lane, those particular lanes, to use our resources towards, and we would also include our time on boards or et cetera. But then we also do relational gifts where we want to encourage other people with their dreams. I mean, I kind of see myself sometimes as helping people make their dreams come true. That makes me happy too.
Yeah.
And so if a friend really believes in a nonprofit and really wants to have me learn about it, I would probably give a gift, and maybe even a recurring gift, because I support the friend, not necessarily the ministry. Doesn't make it's a good ministry and they're having a good impact, but it's not something that I would necessarily be drawn towards. So that's why I say there's probably two reasons people might give. And if you can draw them into a community with their friends, they may be giving because they care and they love their friend so much so that they want to support the friend and their dream, the friend's dream. But I would say it feels different when they come and, it's the obligatory meet with them. I've learned now to say a gentle and kind no.
So walk me through that. What's that feel like when it's not the right fit?
It feels hard. You feel so bad, like, I'm going to have to say no. But I've been able to tell people, well, I only have a certain amount of hours in the day, and this just isn't in our lane, and, wish you the best. So you always say something positive, but I wish you the best. But this really isn't something I can do now. Now, I've said that to some people, and some folks have then said, I totally get that. Would you mind if I continue to send you some information about us over time? Because there may be a time in the future when you are. And I'm like, that's a good move, because I'll say yes, right? And so do that. And if they say no, honor that. Don't keep pressing.
What interests me
is always ask for that second ask of, could I continue to at least send you our updates on, what we're learning, what kind of impact we're having. The other thing is to always ask them if they know somebody else who might be interested.
Yeah. And when I said, oh, wow, I wasn't necessarily saying, oh, wow, about what a great idea. I was saying, oh, wow, about the fact that you said that was a good move. I mean, you are so aware of how to do this from the fundraiser's perspective. Most people aren't. But for you to go, oh, good move. And here's the thing. When you're truly approached by someone in a manner that is completely genuine and authentic, I don't want you to ever be saying, oh, that was a good move, because that means there's a strategy there. And I'm wondering, has there been a time where you didn't have that, oh, that was a good move moment, where you basically completely felt like this was the most incredible giving experience because it was genuine from the moment they contacted you till maybe long after you made the gift? My guess is that those experiences are few and far between. I've talked to some people who have said, can't say I've ever had that experience before. Have you had that experience then where someone came and you never even put on that fundraising coach hat? You just simply felt so inspired. Can you tell me, if you have, what organizations did that? Or, if you felt comfortable naming even.
Sure.
Who's doing it well?
Yeah. Well, the time I remember very clearly, and it was International Justice Mission, and we had maybe given sporadic, very small gifts over time. But then a friend of mine who runs their gala, annual gala, called me personally and said, I'd love to have you at my table. And, and it was someone I wanted to see anyway. And so she was inviting me into a community of givers, not just the organization. And that just opened up where we started going every year, and we got really excited, and we got our business to corporate match,
Yeah.
So that really started because she was inviting me into a community. And I remember feeling so honored, like, oh, she's at, so yeah,
Yeah.
that was completely no fundraising hat on my,
So
I
did that
responded.
feeling continue as you continued to give? Did that feeling continue where you still to this day maybe feel like a cherished member of the family?
Yes, I do.
Oh, good. Because that's not always the case. So I'm going to ask you to get really honest here. What is the worst way you've been asked? Like, can you tell me what was the worst solicitation you've ever lived through?
The worst was someone accusing me of not wanting to have eternal ROI, which means return on investment, because I was not investing in his nonprofit, and it was a group that was helping people with their physical and material needs, but it was also helping with their salvation, their soul needs. And he came back and said, well, I hope your other, very snarky, I hope your other donations have a better return on investment than ours, but I doubt they will. He was literally accusing me of, yeah, and I felt so shaken. And I brought, women, I think my husband would have just said, just delete that guy and get him off, But I felt shaken. I felt offended. I felt like maybe I should say something. And I was like, nope, don't engage with people like that, and just never answer him again. And yeah, but I felt that was, and what I decided was to forgive, in the sense that I know he believes in his mission so much
You've got so much
that he
grace.
just thinks everyone should give to that one thing.
Yeah.
But that's not the way the world works. We're all made with different passions and different, what I would call, good works that we're supposed to step into. And so when someone doesn't honor that I have certain lanes I'm supposed to be in and not others, I feel really unknown, and I feel put off. So,
Well said.
yeah.
So I'm thinking about your book. You and Bill just came out with this book not that long ago called Stewards, Not Owners. What inspired you to write that book?
We think unleashing other people's joy into generosity and helping think through all their resources for good is a way that we can contribute to the whole ecosystem of generosity. And what I have found personally is that generosity has been a portal for me to become a better person. Like, not only is giving good for the organization I'm giving to, it's good for me.
Yeah.
And there are secular studies. The human flourishing study just came out from Harvard and Baylor saying it is good for humanity to be generous. And if you follow Arthur Brooks and his study on human flourishing, again, he says a couple of the main things that will get you out of yourself and feeling better about, a more satisfied, meaningful, impactful life. What? Generosity, giving back.
Wouldn't it be incredible if we had like a generosity movement in this country? I've always kind of fantasized about seeing on a bus, maybe there's like a big advertisement about being generous. And I wish companies would actually compete to see who can be the most generous, because generosity is the one thing that isn't divisive. It's the one thing. It doesn't matter how old you are, what your race is, what your politics are, where you live. I think most people believe that generosity is a good thing. And so what I hear you saying is this is a gift for you, and that maybe it would be helpful for our listeners to know that you're not asking something from them. You're offering them a gift too. And when you care just as much about the giver's experience, maybe even more so than getting the gift, then it's beautiful. But when you come to it as a needy organization saying, okay, you have money, we have a need, won't you give and help us? Well, that's just not nearly as rewarding or inspiring as when someone says, hey, we have this incredible project. We have the time and the expertise. You have the financial resources. Together, how about if we do this? And
Exactly.
that's the way we want them all to be. But sometimes it's our mindset that gets in the way.
Exactly. And that's where you want to think of them as patrons, not as just check writers, right? That
Yeah.
they are an essential part of they are part of what you are building. Like, even using language of, we are building something, we'd like you to come alongside, you know.
Isn't that better than some of the other ways you've been asked? Do you and Bill
Joanna,
always... Oh, go ahead. You have a
I was
question?
going to say, there is a generosity movement. It's out there. And if you go to generousgiving.org, they have all kinds of stories about people being generous with all of their resources, time, treasure, talent, and ties, which are your relationships. And they are funded by the McClellan Foundation, so they don't even ask for people to support them. And it is a movement of trying to support more people and liberating people to see that they have more agency through their resources in giving than they thought.
Yes.
Sometimes people are just busy, or they may have some fears about, they've given up control if they give some money away. But the thing is, if you believe in the nonprofit that you're giving to, you haven't given up control. You're partnering with them. You're part of the outcome and the impact. As opposed to, I've written a check and now I kind of don't even know really what, kind of black hole that I went into.
And I'm so glad you mentioned Generous Giving. So I have had the pleasure of getting to know them. And I did one of those Journey of Generosity retreats. And I love them. But you know what? I've been in the fundraising industry for nearly 30 years, and I had never heard of them until last year when I started looking at the generosity space. And now I always like to let my listeners and my students know that there are organizations like Generous Giving, like Women Doing Well. We had Julie Wilson here on the podcast. There's organizations just dedicated to helping people who have wealth give in alignment with their values. And I think when we realize all of that there's no shortage of wealth, and there's no shortage of generous people who really do want to use their wealth to make the world a better place. But where it gets stuck, and this is why I do the work I do, because I think generosity is obstructed. It gets stuck because those on the other side, there's no shortage of need. They don't necessarily know what it's like to be someone who has that kind of capacity, and they think there's not enough money, and it feels awkward and it's uncomfortable. And so I love interviewing people like you who have experience on this side to say, oh my gosh, there's all kinds of people who are just waiting for the right opportunity, but they need to be approached as humans, not as wallets.
Exactly. And if you go to our website for the book, stewardsnotowners.com, stewardsnotowners.com, there's a whole list of resources of groups like Women Doing Well, Generous Giving, Crown Financial Ministries, to kind of help you think through, wiser giving. And so I think that people need to be resourced, and they need to know that there's people out there and excited, like it's plausible that because others are giving, I can give too.
Right. In fact, I'm excited about launching something called the Generosity Lab. And this is going to be offered next year in terms of following the Dreams Retreat that people can go on. And the Generosity Lab is going to be a time where you can actually have a mentor, have a generosity mentor, have someone who has the capacity to make a major investment. But I would say to that person, you are not to make a gift unless you feel inspired, because I need my students to be able to practice, or my clients to be able to practice with someone, because having a conversation with someone who lives a different lifestyle, who just, I remember when I was really new, and I had to make a request, like a 6-figure ask. I couldn't even imagine having that much money, let alone giving of it all away. And it was intimidating for me, which then feels the other person can sense that. So if we can remind each other that, first of all, it's all relative, right? The size of the gift is irrelevant. It's all relative to the person's, what might be a huge gift to them, or a small gift to them might be a huge gift to us. But my point is that a generosity lab is just one idea of how we can pair people together and practice. Because I think knowledge is only power when it's applied. And so my goal is for people to see that generosity is obstructed, and until we learn another way, and until we learn from people like you who are willing to be graceful and willing to give tips, we're not going to get very far, and money isn't going to get released unless we change the way we do this.
Exactly. And you also don't want to come with any kind of underlying judgment that, oh, they're rich, so they should be able to give.
Oh, say
because
more.
You don't know where they're already giving. Maybe they're at capacity, or maybe at that point they're stretched in terms of not having access. It's called, they're not liquid right now, but they maybe have some events in the next 6 months where they would then have more capital to give. So, you can't just assume that if it looks like it's got the person has a lot of money, that they can just easily, they have it sitting around, right?
Do you feel judged often?
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes I feel like people think, well, you've got the capacity, you've got a giving fund with National Christian Foundation, therefore you should give. And that's when they're saying that what they do in the world is the most important thing, regardless of where my passions are. But if they say, no, we don't want you to give if this isn't your passion. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, now I'm ready to hear.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because they want to align me and my giving with my values, not with their values, with my values.
That reminds me of something Julie Wilson said that I will never forget. She said, I want to be your easiest no. I love that. I love that because I do. I want to be your easiest no. If we're not in alignment, please don't give. Do not give out of obligation. Do not give out of guilt. Only give if you truly feel like this is in alignment with your values, because when it's done that way, then it's beautiful. And there's no shortage of people who would be or who could be. So anyway, I love your heart. I love the way that I love this book. What a gift. And how fun it must be that you and Bill wrote this together. Oh, and that leads me to one more question. Do you and Bill always agree on what to give to?
Not necessarily, nor do we necessarily agree on the amount. Sometimes we're just right on, like, yep, we're going to give, and we can make those decisions very quickly. Other times we say no, I'm not interested in it, but we allow ourselves we do a yearly kind of plan of giving, and then we leave a slush fund so nice. That, just something comes up, kids going on a mission trip. Yeah. Well, we say yes to almost all those. And so we have a slush fund for things that we wouldn't have foreseen in the future, but it's not a big one. So we're very planned out. But we each allow each other, like, is this something really part of, you really want to do this? Okay, yeah, because we allow for the fact that each of us are not the same person. But then we've had times where I don't feel that strongly about it, and the other person doesn't, and we say, no, or not yet. And we might even say, check back in 3 years, because right now, 3 years is about when we would start maybe looking for some new partners or something like that.
You're so thoughtful about your giving. You're really thoughtful. And I think most people know you're supposed to be thoughtful and plan ahead for retirement, plan ahead for your future. But we don't always have a strategy for how we're going to plan for our giving. And you're doing that. You lead by example, and I think that's inspiring.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's actually really has been something that's been so fun. It started for me as more of a duty over 30 years ago. But once it became a habit, then I started seeing both the beauty of the relationship with, the people that are working, let's say, on the front lines, and I'm one of the patrons or one of the givers. But then over time, seeing the recipients is like, those are my brothers and sisters. And, some of them I get to meet if I, can meet them at a gala or, a mission trip overseas. Some of them I will only meet in heaven, but I will meet them, and it's that kind of feeling of the common humanity, and that we are having an impact even across the world. It's just a vision that's really satisfying to me. Yeah.
And before we wrap up, there's something you said in the very beginning that I want to circle back to. And you said, it doesn't matter how much, right? You can start with just giving a little. And I think when you become a generous person yourself and you start giving, and then you're on that side, it changes how you invite other people to give. I remember not really knowing what a donor advised fund was. I knew what it was from just somebody telling me, and I read up on it. But it was very hard for me to suggest it to someone because I didn't really quite understand it firsthand. But then when I opened my own donor advised fund and I started using it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is an amazing, what a wonderful way to give. It's like my own little giving fund. Well, now I can explain it. And I know now what it feels like to make a gift and hear nothing in response, or to be invited to a luncheon or invited to have coffee with someone and you're like, are they only asking me because are they going to ask me or are they not? It just makes me a better fundraiser when I'm also a giver, a generous person. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I love the fact that you said it doesn't really matter. Just start, because it was getting that habit going for you, and look at how it has blossomed.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. But I would also encourage people I had a lot of people that build right up to the ask, but then they don't do the ask.
Oh, that must be an odd feeling.
Yeah. And I sometimes will say, you missed the opportunity to ask. If you don't think the person, they've already sent signals, this is a no, blah, 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 then that would be pushy. But I've had people kind of just get right up to it and not ask. And so we usually will get back to, I've learned again to be, in this dance of, really partnering with people to close the loop and say, either, we are interested, or right now we're not interested. So at least, but usually if they do ask, I say, good for you, because you need to take that step. And that's the hardest step, is the ask.
Especially if you haven't done the work ahead of time to inspire the generosity, because it is hard when we haven't created the conditions for it. It really isn't hard if we've created the conditions first. But you, do they always ask you or do they always tell you when they call to schedule time with you? Do they usually say, I'd like to talk to you about the possibility of making a gift, or I'm not going to ask you for anything, I just want to know your story? Are they pretty clear? Because that's what I think is important.
No, and that would be nice if they were clear of what their goal was.
Because you sit there and wonder the whole time, are they going to ask or are they not going to ask? I think asking, letting people know up front, especially if you're a fundraising professional and that's your full-time job, they're going to think it's strange that you didn't. If you do, or if you didn't and you should, like you said, oh, well, wait a minute, why did you even come here if you're not going to ask? But there are times when we shouldn't be coming just to ask. We should be coming to ask for advice. But you need to be clear when you set the appointment. What is this about? That would help, wouldn't it?
It would. Yeah. That'd be great. Yeah.
Well, I have so enjoyed our time together. You inspire me for so many different reasons. Thank you for taking time out of your day to be on the Inspired Generosity podcast.
Oh, Joanna, thank you so much for what you're doing to really increase and improve the generosity movement and community.
Thank you. All right. Take care. I'm Joanna Hogan, and this is Inspired Generosity. If this episode meant something to you, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next episode.